today we're going to talk a little bit about some standing poses, which tend to get overlooked because they might not be as exciting as some of the other inversions or arm balances or back bends. But they're really the building blocks of our practice, and they're where we can build a ton of strength and flexibility and also balance, so that maybe if you're interested in those more challenging poses, you'll be able to come into them with a little bit more ease or body awareness. So the poses we're going to look at today are considered externally rotated standing poses, which is fancy for just meaning that your front thigh bone is in the opposite direction as your torso. So those are poses like Warrior Two and Triangle and Side Angle. And we're going to look at a couple of the common misalignments that tend to happen, which some of them aren't injurious at all. It's just that if we're going to be doing the poses, we want to get the full benefit of them. So we don't want to miss any opportunities of opening, stretching, or strengthening. Okay, so the first one we'll look at is Warrior Two, Virabhadrasana 2. So Deb's going to come into Warrior Two. Okay, so in a nicely aligned Warrior Two, the front knee is stacked right on top of the ankle. The front heel is lining up with the back inner arch. And of course, that's not universal, but for most people, it's most beneficial to have the front heel lining up with your back inner arch. And then your back foot is angled up just slightly. What tends to happen is that back foot turns out, and then our knee could potentially get hurt. And then just for a second, Deb, take your hands to your hips, and we're going to straighten into the front leg. So when you straighten your front leg, there's less restriction there. So what typically happens for most people is that back hip hikes up. So we're going to level our pelvis from side to side, which means our frontal hip bones are the same distance from the floor. And then we're also going to make sure that that left hip's not rolling forward, which is another common misalignment. And then once you've done that, then we'll bend back into the front leg. So you want to make sure you can see your front big toe. So draw the knee back. You can think of either lengthening the inner thigh or contracting the outer thigh. And then notice when you drew the knee back, if the back hip hiked up. For some people with really tight hips, there's nothing you can do about that. So in that case, you prioritize the front knee. And then you can lift your arms up to shoulder height. Okay, so we're rooting through the center of the right heel, firming the right glute, the right buttock forward and under us. And then at the same time, pressing the very top of your left thigh bone back to the wall that's behind you. And that can often cause us to tip into the inner arch of the back foot. So you want to stay rooted or seal off the outer edge of your foot. And then without losing any of that work through the legs, we're trying to lift through the low belly. You can think of zipping up a tight pair of jeans, or you could imagine there's a weight hanging from your tailbone. And then we also want to square the rib cage toward the long edge of the mat. Yes, you're pulling the left side of your ribs back. And when we do that, the right knee might buckle. So keep an eye on that right big toe. And then you just want to try to soften into the pose, finding your breath, release the base of the neck. And then you can come out of that, Deb. You can straighten into the front leg. So one of the benefits of our Warrior Two is it helps to lengthen the inner thigh, it strengthens the outer thigh, but we're also getting some work in our hip flexors, those muscles in the front of the back hip crease. So we'll only get that opening though if we really focus on what's happening in the back leg, which we tend to forget about. So then the next pose we're going to look at is triangle pose. So I believe that most people benefit from a block, and you want to place the block behind your foot. That way, if you take it to the inside of the foot, we tend to lean forward, which is one of the things that we're trying to avoid while we're here. And just like our last pose, we want our front heel to line up with the back inner arch, and that back foot is at a little bit of an angle. So some people call it a 60-degree angle. You just want to make sure that it's at a little bit of an angle so your toes aren't going to turn back. And then I like to start with the hands on the hips again. Squeeze the leg muscles to the bone. Once you've done that, lift your arms up to shoulder height. Then begin to extend the right fingertips out and up so that you're creating that length in your bottom waist. And then when you feel like you absolutely can't reach anymore, then lower the hand down. And the left arm reaches up to the ceiling. And so we want to make sure that the right wrist is under the shoulder, so we're stacking our shoulders. And then what tends to happen here in this pose is that the left side of the rib cage rolls down toward the floor. So we want to try to stack our shoulders and our ribs. And when we correct for that, then the legs tend to check out. So keep firming the right glute, your right buttock forward and under you. Press down through the right big toe mound. You can see how Deb's toes are peeling up. That's going to really connect her to the big toe mound, which is this part of the ball of the foot that's right underneath your big toe. And then we tend to forget about the back leg. So keep squeezing your left quad, press the left thigh bone back, and seal off the outer edge of the foot. And then the other thing that tends to happen here is the butt will stick out. So you're trying to firm the butt underneath you, which is also your gluteus muscle. That looks really nice. And then to come out of it, you root down into your feet and use the strength of your sides in an inhale to lift up. And you can take your hands back to your hips. And then the third pose that we're going to look at is side angle, or Parshvakonasana, which is often thought of as the marriage between Warrior Two and Triangle Pose, because it's your legs of Warrior Two, but the torso of your triangle. Okay, so we'll start by bending into the front leg, and then you can just take your forearm down onto your thigh bone. And with your left hand on your hip, show them what it looks like when someone's rolling down. So this is where the body's exit route is to avoid the stretch. So we're trying to lift the left hip up and stack the shoulders in the ribs. And you can see how much more open she is. Right? You could imagine your body sliding in between two panes of glass. Okay? Again, just like Warrior Two, the knee's on top of the ankle. It's in line with your second toe. So many of us feel a stretch in the right inner thigh. And then we're trying to firm the right glute forward and under us without letting the left thigh bone drop down. If you can keep the right glute firming under you, and you can keep your shoulders stacked, you can lower your right hand down to the block. And in the classic position, the block is to the pinky edge of the foot, but most of us, I think, benefit more with it on the inside of the foot, because then you can press the right arm and leg into each other. And then you can take the left arm up to the ceiling. So you'll know that you've lowered your hand too far when you can no longer stack your shoulders and ribs, and you can no longer firm the right glute underneath you. So still trying to imagine yourself between those two panes of glass. And then the last part is to reach the left arm up by the ear. Beautiful. So you can see how she did that. The palm is facing the ground. The tricep, the outer arm, rotates down toward your face. And then we're trying to find this nice long straight line of energy from the outer edge of the left foot all the way through the left fingertips. And then she's been there for a very long time. We'll lift the left arm up, lift all the way up, hands to the hips. And so that's your little tutorial on externally rotated poses. I hope you enjoyed it.